The moment you decide to stop making excuses for your life, something strange happens. People who used to encourage your dreams suddenly become your harshest critics. Your own family members start questioning your new habits. Friends who once supported your goals begin rolling their eyes when you mention your progress. What changed? You did. And that terrifies them. Here's what nobody wants to admit. When you start taking real responsibility for your results, you become a living mirror. Every choice you make reflects back to others, the choices they're not making. Every excuse you stop using highlights the excuses they still cling to. Every small victory you achieve reminds them of the victories they've given up pursuing. Think about the last time someone close to you started making real changes. Maybe they began waking up earlier, eating better, or working on a side business. How did you feel? Be honest. Was there a small part of you that wanted them to fail, that hoped they'd give up and return to the comfort of shared mediocrity? That uncomfortable feeling you experienced. That's exactly what others feel when you start changing. The truth cuts both ways. The same mirror that reflects your growth also reflects their stagnation. When you stop complaining about your circumstances and start changing them, you force everyone around you to confront a harsh reality. They too could change their circumstances if they chose to. But change requires work. Change demands consistency. Change means giving up the comfortable stories we tell ourselves about why things are the way they are. I know a man who worked in a factory for 15 years. Every day he and his coworkers would gather during lunch break and complain. They complained about their boss, their wages, their lack of opportunities. They bonded over their shared frustration with life. Then one day this man decided he'd had enough. He started reading books during his lunch break instead of complaining. He enrolled in night classes. He began saving money and planning his exit strategy. At first, his coworkers were curious. Then they became concerned. "You're changing," they told him. "You think you're better than us now." They weren't wrong. He was changing, but he wasn't trying to be better than them. He was trying to be better than his former self. The problem was, his improvement made their lack of improvement impossible to ignore. Within 2 years, he had completed his certification and landed a better job. His former coworkers didn't celebrate his success. Instead, they found reasons to diminish it. He got lucky, they said. He had connections. They couldn't acknowledge the truth, that he had simply decided to plant different seeds than they were planting. What excuse have you been using longest to avoid becoming who you could be? Is it your age, your background, your lack of education, your financial situation, your family responsibilities? Whatever it is, the moment you stop using that excuse and start taking action despite it, you'll discover something profound about human nature. The people who supported that excuse will suddenly turn against your progress. This happens because taking responsibility is contagious, knee-staining, and threatening. When you stop blaming your circumstances and start changing them, you remove the social permission others have been using to stay stuck. You break the unspoken agreement that says we're all victims here, so none of us have to change. Your growth becomes their guilt. Your action becomes their accusation. Your results become their reminder of what they could have if they were willing to pay the price you're paying. But here's what you must understand. Their resistance to your growth is not about you. It's about them. It's about their fear of what it would mean if they acknowledged that change is possible. Because if change is possible, then their current situation is a choice. And if their current situation is a choice, then they are responsible for it. Most people would rather attack your character than examine their choices. They'd rather question your motives than question their methods. They'd rather tear down your success than build up their own. The farming principle applies here just as it applies everywhere else in life. You cannot plant seeds of mediocrity and expect to harvest success. You cannot spend your days complaining and your nights dreaming and expect anything to change. You cannot surround yourself with people who are committed to staying stuck and expect to grow. But when you start planting the right seeds, when you start reading instead of watching television, when you start saving instead of spending, when you start exercising instead of making excuses, something beautiful begins to happen. You begin to attract different results. and those different results attract different people. The farmer who plants corn doesn't get upset when his field produces corn instead of wheat. He understands that results follow actions as surely as night follows day. The same principle governs your life. Plant the seeds of discipline, and you'll harvest the fruits of success. Plant the seeds of excuses, and you'll harvest the fruits of regret. Every morning you make a choice. You can plant seeds that will benefit your future self, or you can plant seeds that will burden your future self. You can read 10 pages of a good book, or you can scroll through meaningless content. You can save $5, or you can spend it on something you don't need. You can exercise for 20 minutes, or you can remain sedentary. These choices seem small in the moment, but they compound over time. The person who reads 10 pages daily will read 18 books in a year. The person who saves $5 daily will have nearly $2,000 at year's end. The person who exercises 20 minutes daily will transform their health and energy levels. But here's what happens when you start making these better choices consistently. The people around you will notice, and many of them won't like what they see, because your consistency highlights their inconsistency. Your progress illuminates their stagnation. Your growth exposes their excuses. A woman I know decided to start waking up at 5 in the morning to work on her writing. She had always dreamed of becoming an author, but she'd spent years making excuses about not having enough time. When she finally decided to create time by waking up early, her husband became resentful. "You're obsessed," he told her. "You care more about your writing than about our family." But that wasn't true. She cared about her family so much that she was willing to sacrifice sleep to pursue something that could improve their lives. She was willing to be uncomfortable in the short term to create comfort in the long term. Her husband's resistance wasn't about her neglecting the family, it was about her highlighting his own unwillingness to sacrifice for his dreams. Within a year, she had completed her first novel. Her husband didn't congratulate her. Instead, he found fault with her work. "It's not that good," he said. "You're wasting your time." But she persisted. She continued waking up at 5. She continued writing. She continued improving. 2 years later, she published her book. It became a bestseller. Her husband's criticism turned to silence. He couldn't deny her success any longer, but he couldn't celebrate it either, because celebrating her success would mean acknowledging that he could have achieved his own dreams if he had been willing to pay the same price she paid. This is the uncomfortable truth about personal growth. It forces everyone around you to confront their own choices. Your discipline becomes their mirror. Your consistency becomes their judgment. Your results become their reminder of what's possible when someone stops making excuses and starts making progress. The predictable patterns of life reveal themselves when you start paying attention. Spring always follows winter. Harvest always follows planting. Results always follow actions. These patterns are as reliable as gravity, yet most people act as if they're surprised by them. People plant seeds of procrastination and wonder why they harvest failure. They plant seeds of negativity and wonder why they harvest problems. They plant seeds of excuses and wonder why they harvest limitations. Then they look at someone who planted different seeds and got different results, and they call it luck. There's no luck involved in the farming principle. The farmer who plants his seeds in the spring doesn't hope for a harvest in the fall. He expects it. He knows that if he does his part, nature will do its part. The same principle governs every area of your life. If you plant the seeds of daily reading, you will harvest knowledge. If you plant the seeds of daily exercise, you will harvest health. If you plant the seeds of daily saving, you will harvest wealth. If you plant the seeds of daily discipline, you will harvest freedom. But when you start planting these seeds consistently, the people around you will begin to feel uncomfortable. Your discipline will make their lack of discipline obvious. Your progress will make their stagnation apparent. Your growth will make their excuses inexcusable. This is when the hatred begins. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because you've done something right. Not because you've hurt them, but because you've helped yourself. Not because you've changed them, but because you've changed yourself. The person who starts their day with exercise while others start with excuses becomes a mirror. The person who spends their evening reading while others spend it complaining becomes a mirror. The person who saves money while others spend it becomes a mirror, and mirrors don't lie. When people see their reflection in your choices, they have two options. They can change their choices, or they can attack your character. Most choose the second option because it's easier. It's easier to tear someone down than to build yourself up. It's easier to question someone's motives than to examine your own methods. It's easier to hate someone's success than to create your own. But their hatred doesn't diminish your results. Their criticism doesn't cancel your progress. Their resistance doesn't reverse your growth. If anything, their negative reaction confirms that you're moving in the right direction, because the only people who get upset when you start succeeding are the people who have given up on their own success. Success leaves clues, and so does failure. The person who blames others for their problems will always find others to blame. The person who makes excuses for their lack of progress will always find excuses to make. The person who resents others' success will always find reasons to resent. But the person who takes responsibility for their results will always find ways to improve those results. The person who plants good seeds will always harvest good fruit. The person who commits to daily disciplines will always create extraordinary outcomes. The choice is yours. You can continue seeking approval from people who benefit from your limitations, or you can start pursuing results that benefit your future. You can keep making excuses that make others comfortable, or you can start making progress that makes you proud. There's a price for everything in life. The price for staying the same is the life you'll never live. The price for changing is the criticism you'll face from those who choose to stay stuck. Most people think the price of transformation is too high. They're wrong. The price of staying the same is infinitely higher. What's the real cost of living below your potential? Calculate it honestly. How much money have you not earned because you avoided taking risks? How many opportunities have you missed because you were afraid of what others might think? How many dreams have you abandoned because someone convinced you they were unrealistic? The mathematics of mediocrity is devastating. When you add it up, every day you don't read, you fall further behind those who do. Every day you don't save, you remain further from financial freedom. Every day you don't exercise, your health deteriorates a little more. The compound effect works in both directions. It can build you up or tear you down, depending on your daily choices. A young man once approached a successful businessman and asked for the secret to his success. The businessman replied, "Good decisions." The young man asked how to make good decisions. "Experience," came the answer. "But how do you get experience?" The young man persisted. "Bad decisions." The businessman smiled. "This is the price of wisdom. You must pay for it with mistakes, failures, and setbacks. But here's what most people miss. You're going to pay a price either way. You can pay the price of discipline, or you can pay the price of regret. You can pay the price of hard work, or you can pay the price of wishing you had worked harder. You can pay the price of temporary discomfort, or you can pay the price of permanent disappointment. The man who chooses to wake up early pays the price of lost sleep. The man who chooses to sleep in pays the price of lost opportunities. The woman who chooses to save money pays the price of delayed gratification. The woman who chooses to spend everything pays the price of financial stress. Both pay a price, manas, but only one price leads to the life you actually want. Your character is built one decision at a time, like a house is built one brick at a time. Each small choice either strengthens your foundation or weakens it. Each moment of discipline adds to your strength. Each moment of compromise subtracts from it. You cannot build a strong character with weak choices. You cannot develop self-respect through self-betrayal. You cannot create confidence through constant compromise. Every time you do what you said you would do, especially when you don't feel like doing it, you make a deposit in your character account. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you make a withdrawal. The person who promises to exercise and then doesn't is making a character withdrawal. The person who commits to saving money and then spends it is making a character withdrawal. The person who decides to read more and then watches television instead is making a character withdrawal. These withdrawals add up, creating a deficit of self-trust that affects every area of life. But the opposite is also true. The person who exercises when they don't feel like it is making a character deposit. The person who saves money when they want to spend it is making a character deposit. The person who reads when they'd rather relax is making a character deposit. These deposits compound, creating a surplus of self-confidence that transforms everything. A woman decided to change her life at age 45. She was overweight, in debt, and stuck in a job she hated. Her friends told her it was too late to change. You are who you are, they said. Accept it. But she refused to accept a life of limitation. She started with small changes. She replaced her morning coffee with water and a multivitamin. She parked farther from store entrances to get more steps. She packed her lunch instead of buying it. These changes seemed insignificant to her friends, who laughed at her extreme measures. But she understood something they didn't. Small changes create big results. When you stay consistent long enough, within 6 months she had lost 30 pounds and saved $2,000. Her friends stopped laughing and started criticizing. You're obsessed, they told her. This isn't healthy. Their criticism revealed their fear. They were afraid that if she could change at 45, then they had no excuse for not changing too. They preferred to believe that change was impossible, rather than accept that change required effort. They weren't willing to invest. She continued her transformation despite their resistance. She started waking up an hour earlier to study for professional certification. She used her lunch breaks to network instead of complain. She spent her evenings planning her business instead of watching television. Within 2 years, she had earned 3 certifications, started a consulting business, and doubled her income. Her friends didn't congratulate her success. They questioned her methods. You got lucky, they said. You had advantages we don't have. They couldn't acknowledge the truth, that she had simply paid a price they weren't willing to pay. This is the predictable pattern of transformation. First comes the decision, then comes the discipline, then comes the resistance from others, then comes the breakthrough, then comes the attempt to diminish your success. Every season serves a purpose in your development. The winter of struggle prepares you for the spring of opportunity. The spring of planting determines the fall of harvest. The fall of harvest sustains you through the next winter of challenge. People who don't understand seasons expect immediate results and give up when they don't get them. But those who understand seasons know that today's sacrifice becomes tomorrow's strength. Today's discipline becomes tomorrow's freedom. Today's investment becomes tomorrow's income. They plant when others party, work when others rest, and save when others spend. The cycle repeats predictably. Comfort leads to complacency. Complacency leads to crisis. Crisis leads to change. Change leads to growth. Growth leads to new comfort. Most people try to avoid this cycle, but successful people embrace it. They know that comfort is the enemy of growth, so they voluntarily create discomfort to prevent involuntary crisis. When you start choosing discomfort over ease, people around you will think you've lost your mind. They'll try to talk you back into comfort. They'll offer you every excuse to quit. They'll remind you of every reason why change is impossible. This resistance is actually a signal that you're moving in the right direction. External resistance often indicates internal progress. When people start attacking your character, question your methods, or doubt your motives, they're usually revealing their own fears about what your success means for their excuses. The person who starts a business faces criticism from those who complain about their jobs. The person who loses work faces sabotage from those who complain about their health. The person who saves money faces pressure from those who complain about being broke. The criticism isn't about your choices. It's about their fears. Breaking free from limiting patterns requires recognizing them first. The pattern of procrastination looks like this: good intentions followed by delayed action, followed by guilt, followed by excuses, followed by more good intentions. The pattern repeats until you break it or it breaks you. The pattern of blame looks like this: problems arise, responsibility is deflected, others are criticized, nothing changes, more problems arise. This pattern continues until you accept that you are both the cause of your problems and the solution to them. The pattern of excuse making looks like this: obstacles appear, reasons are manufactured, action is avoided, results don't change, bigger obstacles appear. This pattern persists until you realize that obstacles are not roadblocks. They're stepping stones for those willing to step on them. Every successful person has learned to interrupt these patterns. They've developed what I call pattern immunity, the ability to recognize destructive patterns before they take hold and replace them with constructive ones. When procrastination tries to set in, they take immediate action on something small. When blame tries to emerge, they ask what they could have done differently. When excuses try to form, they focus on solutions instead of problems. The language you use reveals the patterns you follow. People who say I can't follow different patterns than people who say how can I? People who say it's impossible follow different paths. People who say what's possible. People who say I don't have time follow different patterns than people who say I'll make time. Your words create your world. Change your language, and you change your life. Start speaking the language of possibility instead of the language of limitation. Start using the vocabulary of solutions instead of the vocabulary of problems. Start employing the terminology of responsibility instead of the terminology of blame. The daily disciplines that create extraordinary results are simpler than most people think, but harder than most people are willing to do. They require you to do ordinary things extraordinarily well and do them consistently over time. Reading 30 minutes daily doesn't seem like much, but it equals 9 hours monthly and over 100 hours yearly. That's equivalent to taking a college course every year just by reading 30 minutes daily. Saving 10% of your income doesn't seem significant, but it compounds into financial security over time. The person who saves 10% from age 25 to 65 will accumulate more wealth than the person who saves regardless of their income level. Exercising 20 minutes daily doesn't seem impressive, but it totals over 100 hours yearly of physical activity. That's more exercise than most people get in 5 years. These small daily disciplines seem insignificant in the moment, but they create massive results over time. The problem is that most people want massive results without daily disciplines. They want the harvest without the planting. They want the prize without the price. But life doesn't work that way. Life rewards consistency, not intensity. Life rewards daily disciplines, not yearly resolutions. Life rewards small steps taken consistently, not giant leaps taken occasionally. The choice you make today determines the life you live tomorrow. You can choose the discipline that leads to freedom, or you can choose the discipline that leads to freedom, or you can choose the sacrifice that creates strength, or you can choose the ease that creates weakness. You can choose to pay the price of success, or you can choose to pay the price of failure. But understand this, you will pay a price either way. The question is not whether you'll pay a price. The question is which price you'll choose to pay. Will you pay the price that leads to the life you want, or will you pay the price that leads to the life you wonder? Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. But here's what nobody tells you. When you start changing your future, your friends start changing too. Some will evolve with you, others will resist your evolution, and some will reveal that they were never really your friends at all. Who in your life benefits from you staying exactly where you are? Think about it honestly. Who gets uncomfortable when you mention your goals? Who discourages you from taking risks? Who reminds you of past failures when you talk about future plans? These people have a vested interest in your limitations because your limitations make them feel better about their own. The law of association is as predictable as gravity. You become like the people you spend the most time with. Their habits become your habits. Their language becomes your language. Their limitations become your limitations. Their dreams become your dreams, or lack thereof. If you want to know where you'll be in 5 years, look at the 5 people you spend the most time with today. Look at their health, their wealth, their relationships, their attitudes. If you're comfortable with that preview of your future, keep the same associations. If you're not, it's time to make some changes. This doesn't mean you stop caring about people or abandon everyone who isn't successful. It means you become selective about who influences your daily decisions. It means you choose your advisors carefully. It means you understand that not everyone's opinion about your life deserves equal weight. A young entrepreneur learned this lesson the hard way. He had a group of friends from college who met monthly for dinner. For years, these gatherings were fun and comfortable. Everyone complained about their jobs, their bosses, their lack of money. It was a shared experience that bonded them together. When he decided to start his own business, everything changed. His friends' reactions ranged from skeptical to hostile. You're crazy, they said. Do you know how many businesses fail? They cited statistics about entrepreneurship, warned him about financial ruin, and reminded him that he had a good job he shouldn't risk. At first, he tried to convince them. He showed them his business plan, explained his research, shared his passion for the venture, but their resistance only grew stronger. They weren't interested in his success. They were threatened by it. His potential success challenged their excuses for staying in jobs they hated. The monthly dinners became sessions where his friends tried to talk him out of his dreams. They questioned his judgment, criticized his decisions, and celebrated every small setback as proof they were right. He realized these people weren't supporting his highest good, they were protecting their comfort zones. He made a difficult decision. He stopped attending the monthly dinners. Instead, he started spending time with other entrepreneurs, reading books by successful business owners, and attending networking events where people talked about opportunities instead of obstacles. His old friends felt betrayed. "You think you're too good for us now," they accused. But it wasn't about being too good. It was about being too committed to his goals to let others sabotage them. Within 2 years, his business was thriving. His old friends were still meeting monthly, still complaining about the same problems. This illustrates a fundamental truth about personal development. As you grow, your relationships must evolve too. Some people will grow with you, others will remain where they are, and you must choose whether to stay at their level or continue climbing to yours. The seasons of personal development follow a predictable pattern. Spring is when you plant new habits and start new disciplines. Summer is when you nurture those habits through consistent daily action. Fall is when you harvest the results of your consistency. Winter is when you prepare for the next cycle of growth. People who don't understand seasons expect spring results with winter effort. They want summer growth without spring planting. They demand fall harvests without summer cultivation. When results don't come immediately, they give up and blame external circumstances instead of examining their internal commitment. But those who understand seasons know that everything has its time. They plant consistently in spring, knowing summer will test their resolve. They work diligently in summer, knowing fall will reward their patience. They prepare wisely in fall, knowing winter will require their reserves. The person who reads every day is planting seeds of knowledge that will bloom into expertise. The person who exercises every day is planting seeds of health that will bloom into vitality. The person who saves every day is planting seeds of discipline that will bloom into wealth. But planting requires you to give up something immediate for something eventual. It requires you to sacrifice the pleasure of the moment for the benefit of the future. Most people aren't willing to make this trade, which is why most people don't get extraordinary results. When you start making this trade consistently, you'll notice changes in your relationships. People who are committed to immediate gratification will feel uncomfortable around someone committed to long-term results. People who live for today will question someone who's building for tomorrow. People who spend everything will criticize someone who saves anything. Your commitment to delayed gratification becomes their conviction about immediate consumption. Your willingness to sacrifice becomes their justification for indulgence. Your discipline becomes their defiance of structure. Life operates in patterns that repeat with remarkable consistency. The pattern of success looks like this: preparation meets opportunity and creates results. The pattern of failure looks like this: lack of preparation meets opportunity and creates regret. Most people wait for opportunity to come to them. Successful people prepare themselves for opportunities they haven't yet seen. They develop skills before they need them. They build relationships before they require them. They save money before they must have it. When opportunity arrives, and it always does, prepared people are ready to act. Unprepared people make excuses about timing, resources, or circumstances. The same opportunity that elevates prepared people devastates unprepared people. The pattern of growth looks like this: comfort leads to challenge. Challenge leads to change. Change leads to capability. Capability leads to confidence. Confidence leads to new comfort. People who try to avoid this pattern by staying comfortable never develop new capability. The pattern of decline looks like this: comfort leads to complacency. Complacency leads to stagnation. Stagnation leads to irrelevance. Irrelevance leads to crisis. Crisis forces uncomfortable change. People who won't choose uncomfortable growth end up with involuntary uncomfortable crisis. Reading these patterns gives you power over your circumstances. You can choose challenge before crisis chooses you. You can choose change before change is forced upon you. You can choose growth before decline makes growth necessary for survival. When you start operating by these patterns, people around you will notice. Some will be inspired by your proactive approach to life. Others will be intimidated by your refusal to leave things to chance. The inspired ones become allies in your growth. The intimidated ones become obstacles to your progress. Your job is to recognize which is which and respond accordingly. Allies deserve your time and attention. Obstacles deserve your boundaries and distance. You cannot treat both the same and expect different results. The elimination of success sabotage begins with recognizing the enemies within.
And these enemies don't wear obvious disguises.
They masquerade as reasonable concerns, practical limitations, and protective cautions. Procrastination tells you there will be a better time to start, but there's never a perfect time to begin anything worthwhile.
The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago.
The second best time is today. The same principle applies to every goal worth pursuing. Perfectionism tells you to wait until you can do something perfectly before you start. But perfection is the enemy of progress. Done is better than perfect. Started is better than stalled. Imperfect action beats perfect inaction every single time. The blame game tells you that your circumstances are controlled by external forces beyond your influence. But while you cannot control what happens to you, you can always control how you respond to what happens to you. Your response determines your results more than your circumstances ever will. These internal enemies attract external allies, people who benefit from your self-sabotage. The procrastinator attracts other procrastinators who validate delay. The perfectionist attracts other perfectionists who justify inaction. The blame shifter attracts other blame shifters who confirm victimhood. But when you eliminate these internal enemies, you stop attracting their external allies. You start attracting different people, people who value action over analysis, progress over perfection, responsibility over blame. Your inner circle begins to reflect your inner commitment. The language of achievers sounds different from the language of excuse makers. Achievers say, "How can I?" While excuse makers say, "I can't." Achievers say, "What did I learn?" While excuse makers say, "Who's to blame?" Achievers say, "What's next?" While excuse makers say, "Why me?" The people you surround yourself with will either speak the language of achievement or the language of excuse. They will either challenge you to grow or comfort you in stagnation. They will either inspire you to action or enable your procrastination. Choose carefully. Your associations shape your aspirations. Your conversations determine your considerations. Your influences affect your outcomes. The daily practices that separate extraordinary people from ordinary people are not complicated, but they are demanding. They require consistency when you feel like quitting. They demand discipline when you want to indulge. They insist on action when you prefer analysis. First, start your day with input that elevates your thinking. Read something that challenges your assumptions, inspires your imagination, or expands your knowledge. The first information you consume each day sets the tone for all the decisions that follow. Second, end your day with reflection that improves your judgment. Review what went well, what could improve, and what you learned. This daily practice turns every experience into education and every mistake into a lesson. Third, surround yourself with people who want more from life than comfort and convenience. Seek out those who are building something, learning something, or becoming something. Their energy will fuel your ambition when your motivation wavers. These three practices seem simple, but they're more powerful than most people realize. They create a compound effect that transforms ordinary days into extraordinary years. The person who reads for 30 minutes each morning will consume 50 books annually. The person who reflects for 10 minutes each evening will develop wisdom faster than those who never examine their experiences. The person who associates with ambitious people will develop ambitions they never knew they had. But the person who starts each day with complaint and ends each day with regret will compound these negative patterns until they become permanent. The person who surrounds themselves with people satisfied with less will develop satisfaction with less than they could achieve. Your life is the sum of your daily choices. Your future is the compound result of your consistent actions. Your success is the inevitable outcome of your disciplined habits. The time for excuses has expired. The season for change has arrived. The opportunity for transformation is here. But transformation requires you to transform your relationships along with your habits. Some people in your current circle will celebrate your growth. Others will resent it. Some will adapt to your changes. Others will resist them. Some will grow alongside you. Others will remain where they are. Your job is not to drag anyone along who doesn't want to come. Your responsibility is not to convince anyone who isn't already convinced. Your obligation is not to sacrifice your growth for someone else's comfort. Your job is to become the person you're capable of becoming. Your responsibility is to pursue the life you're meant to live. Your obligation is to honor the potential within you by developing it fully. The people who belong in your future will recognize and support this commitment. The people who don't belong in your future will reveal themselves through their resistance to it. Choose wisely, act boldly, start today.